Good afternoon and welcome to our coverage of the historic visit to Bendigo of Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales. This telecast is being seen through BCV8 in Bendigo, through BCV11 in Swan Hill, GLV8 Gippsland and the Latrobe Valley, STV8 Mildura, and we welcome viewers through GMV6 in Shepparton. We also welcome to our commentary position this afternoon Rosemary Margan, who is well known to our viewers throughout Victoria. Rosemary was born in Bendigo and grew up here. She was Australian water ski champion and well-known television personality and weather girl. Rosemary, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here as always. It's home for me.
Right. Rosemary, of course, has extensive background in modelling and the fashion industry, and no doubt, Rosemary, you'll be looking forward to seeing exactly what the princess is wearing this afternoon.
Oh, yes, and I hope she's warm because that wind's very cold today.
Looks that way, doesn't it?
Yes, Paul.
We'd also like to welcome Commander Michael Parker. Commander Parker is an Australian who served in the Royal Navy in the Atlantic, the Mediterranean and the Pacific. He was equerry in waiting to His Royal Highness, or Her Royal Highness the Princess Elizabeth, and to His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh from 1947 to 1953. He was also private secretary to the Duke of Edinburgh from 1948 to 59, and now resides in Melbourne. Commander Parker, sort of wealth of experience with the royal family.
Thank you. Yes, I've had a most fascinating time, probably the best time of my life. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Right. You, of course, will be well aware of all the planning that's behind a royal visit such as this, and there must be a lot of it.
Well, it's interesting for me because I'm on the outside looking in on this occasion, and after, I think, some 5 world tours and probably a couple of tours of each year, a couple of visits to various countries of each year, I've seen a fair amount of it. And it's very hard work, but I don't want anybody to get the idea that it isn't anything but utterly fascinating, and you're working with splendid people all the way. And I enjoyed that enormously.
Right. We are now waiting to cross to the Mall. There's great excitement in Bendigo, of course. The Royal Entourage is running just a few minutes late, but perhaps if we have a look at the scene, we can see exactly what's going on, because there are a lot of people around about, and as you can see there is the scene from the outside of the Hargraves Mall, which is where the royal couple will alight from. Rosemary, I suppose this is not your first royal tour, because I believe you saw the Queen come to Bendigo in 1954.
Yes, I did. I remember as a very young girl, I won't say how old, being up by the railway station because Queen Elizabeth, as a very new queen, arrived with the Duke of Edinburgh there, and we were out in the thousands, as Bendigo is today. The excitement you were talking about, Paul, is unbelievable in the town today. People have been waiting for hours and hours. We had to walk ourselves earlier, didn't we, through the crowds and talk to them, and they were there with their thermoses and their rugs and their jackets, and it was really wonderful.
It really is amazing that people have been virtually queuing up since the very early hours of this morning.
Right, and so excited. I think royalty is wonderful. It does so much, it brings so much extra colour into our lives. I mean, we need all the colour we can get, don't you think?
Commander, these sort of crowds must be no new thing to you. Does it still fascinate you that people come out in their thousands, even on cold conditions such as today, for a royal tour such as this?
Yes, it always has. I've seen some of the biggest crowds in London. I never forget the crowds on the night that Prince Charles was born, on a foggy night, and everybody was there. And on one occasion when I had a look at the crowd close to the railings, I saw some very interesting people, one of whom was our Prime Minister, Sir Robert Menzies, and not far from him was another interesting person called David Niven. Mm-hmm. So the crowds are full of all kinds of people. And I agree with Rosemary. This is a marvellous spectacle. It's something that everybody loves. They join in it in a big way, and I think that is the answer to the major question.
Exactly.
And there's the scene as we see it, at the point where their Royal Highnesses shall alight from their car. They would be, I would think now, on their way from the Bendigo airport. They've been greeted at the Bendigo airport by Councillor Bernie Keogh, the Shire President of the Shire of Strathfield, and Mrs. Keogh. And also they've met John Radford, MLC, the member for Bendigo Province, and Mrs. Radford, Bruce Reid, MLC, and his wife, David Kennedy, MLA, who's the member for Bendigo, and Mrs. Kennedy, and Bill Ebury, MLA for Midlands, and Mrs. Ebury, John Brumby, the recently newly appointed federal member for Bendigo, Mr. David Wright, the Shire Secretary of Strathfield, and Mrs. Wright. And there's quite an assembly of world wishers who've been out to the airport, and they'll have met the royal couple before their drive into the city of Bendigo. Well, the band aren't waiting for them. They're going to strike up a little bit of entertainment for all the people.
Right, and many of them are rugged up, as we mentioned earlier, with their rugs. They've been there since early this morning. Some as early as about 7 that we spoke to. Not too many, though, that early. All were there.
No, that's right.
From 9 o'clock on, they've been gathering.
I think the weather has been something that deterred people probably from lining up very early in the morning because, gosh, it was cold this morning.
But the sun is shining now, and I'm sure it's warmer in Bendigo than it would have been in Ballarat for their highnesses.
Now, there's the scene at the Shamrock Hotel. This is from where the royal couple will watch the parade of the Dragon's son Lung as he parades past them. And you can see quite a crowd there waiting for them to enter the Shamrock. Commander, your previous trip with the royal couple, were you with the Queen when she came to Bendigo last time?
Yes, I was, and I was so busy that day that I can't remember seeing very much of Bendigo. And one of the tragedies for the staff and those accompanying the royal family is that you're doing so much you can't see over the heads of people. So you tend not to see the places you're going to very much. But then it's a people business, so that's what it's all about. And you are into the business of meeting and seeing people.
Yeah, the difference, of course, is that the royal couple would have time to take it all in, wouldn't they? Because they're, although not really working, they're the ones that are the centre of attraction. They've got plenty of time to take it all in, haven't they?
You're quite right. They're in the centre of the focus of the thing. And I always like to think that a member of the royal family is the sort of person who's taking a spotlight around with them.
Yes.
And when they take that spotlight with them, they move it over the other people that they're talking to or the particular enterprise that they're looking at. And so they take this enterprise with them, and it does a tremendous amount of good.
One of the big things about royal tours, of course, are the children, and they're here today in their thousands.
Yes.
Well, of course, Princess Diana is known as the children's princess. She has a wonderful way with children. As we all know, she worked in kindergartens, has her own beautiful little baby, Prince William. Another little fact I noticed was that they are both Cancer, under the star sign of Cancer, both Princess Diana and Prince William. So those of you who are interested in astrology might look that one up and perhaps work it all out. But she really is the children's princess. She always takes time for the little ones.
Well, a big day for a lot of these young children, a day I think they'll never forget.
Yes, I think that from the young people I've spoken to, they always seem to remember royal visits, Rosemary, don't they?
Oh,
I
well,
bet you
it's
did when you
colour,
were
it's excitement.
Yeah.
And that is one of my earliest memories, the rush to the station to see Queen Elizabeth arrive. And, of course, many people were then at the Oval, which was named after her on that day when she went to our Queen, what is now our Queen Elizabeth Oval here in Bendigo.
There's a special element in this visit, of course, because it's the introduction of Princess Diana, whom we haven't seen before. And of course she is the very epitome of a royal princess. She's so beautiful, she moves so beautifully with dignity and so on. I think that's something that everybody's come to see too.
Also, I think the fact that she's only a very young girl and it's very new to her and she's handling it all so beautifully. It must be terribly, terribly hard to get used to knowing that you can't frown or just look tired because there's a camera waiting every instant to photograph your feelings. And one bad one, as that rather unfortunate shot before her engagement was announced to Prince Charles. Just that one shot creates so much news around the world. She just can't relax for a moment. I think probably of all the workers in the royal family, she's working harder than any of them at the moment.
Yes, you're so right. I think also that to carry on with that a bit further, she's been married.
Right.
Next minute she's had a wonderful baby. The next minute she's moving into a house. And before you can say knife, she's on a world tour. It's quite something,
Very
isn't it?
difficult. Yes, I'm glad it's her and not me.
Of course, they have had a big day today because they've already been to Ballarat after leaving Melbourne early this morning after last night's gala performance. So they haven't really been had much time to think, I wouldn't think. They've been to Ballarat early this morning by the Royal train and then flown here to Bendigo after touring parts of Ballarat and, of course, Sovereign Hill.
Yes. Well, my admiration knows no limit. Having known about this in depth and so on, my admiration is quite profound now to see how well they're doing it.
Now, of course, you would have been involved, Michael, in the organisation. They're doing pretty well to just keep themselves some 8 to 10 minutes behind schedule.
Yes. That also is quite a feat because we have been talking about those two splendid people out in front. But behind that, their own staff, and of course our own premiers who do all the planning and the detail work behind, and they're often forgotten. And they do a major job, and on the accuracy of their planning depends the accuracy of the whole program. And this is proving out now to be absolutely superb.
Now, we saw earlier on some shots of the beautiful buildings around Bendigo, and for people who perhaps are outside the Bendigo area, we would like to remind them, or boast if you like, that Bendigo won the Premier Town Award this year, and this prestigious Premier Town Award is given every 3 years by the Develop Victoria Council, and is being held by Bendigo for the period 1982 to 85. The award was made on the basis of submissions made by the city and its achievements during the previous 3 years contest period, and perhaps the highlight is the Mall that you can see now. This no doubt had an influence on the judges, because it really is a magnificent Mall, and Premier Kane, when making the award to Bendigo, said that the city had displayed overall excellence in all sections of the competition, being beautification, conservation, tourism, youth and recreation. The principal projects would have to be the Hargraves Mall, also the Shamrock Hotel, of course, which was restored during that last 3-year period, and the multi-storey car park. In all, 65 projects were undertaken during the 3 years judging period and were included in the Bendigo submission. And I think it marks a very big period for Bendigo, and providing an unrivalled opportunity for Bendigo to promote itself to the rest of Victoria. And this is just one of the reasons, I think, while the royal couple will be making that visit to Bendigo today, because it is the premier town.
And deservedly so. It is a beautiful town. And the Mall did look lovely as we walked down it this morning. The trees and shrubs were looking wonderful. You wouldn't believe that not so long ago such terrible drought conditions were making everything very difficult to grow. Not only here, of course, in Bendigo, but right throughout the state.
Now the Mall, in fact, as you can see there, it has some, let me see, 38 trees in it. You can see a lot of them there, amongst those beautiful lights. There's 38 trees planted, and this, I think, adds to the very cool and delightful atmosphere of the Mall.
It softens it beautifully, I think, doesn't it? Trees make such a difference. And I think perhaps one of the most impressive things is that this whole project was done within $1 million, which is very cost-effective in today's spending, I think.
I think also, Michael, in the early stages there was quite a bit of discussion as to whether or not the Mall should be built, because it has a big effect on the retailers, of course.
Right.
And but I think that there wouldn't be one retailer now in the central business district that would say the Mall should not have been built, because it really is beautiful.
Yes.
In fact, the retailers are in charge of the management of the Mall. Is that correct,
That's
Paul?
right.
Yes.
Well, all is in readiness. The crowd are getting more and more expectant. It will be interesting to see how long it takes the royal couple to get from the airport to here.
I imagine there are 1 or 2 blocks of people. There'll probably be a lot of young people there. The schools will all turn out en masse, and they'll choose their own spots. And when they come up to a group of children or a group of people like that, the car always slows down, which gives the organisers a bit of a flutter, but they invariably slow down and get as close as they can to them, give them a wave. And I should imagine that's going on all the way.
There you can see the very proud flag of the Shamrock Hotel fluttering in the breeze, and I should say it's a little bit more than a breeze, really.
Forsyth gale.
It looks to me as though the royal couple will have a rather cold vantage point from the veranda of the Mall where they see the dragon.
Yeah.
No doubt they'll be suitably rugged up there, Rosemary.
Well, I hope so. We were talking a little earlier and saying that we hope the princess has discovered thermal underwear because she struck some cold spots on this visit. She really has.
Well, just as a matter of interest, when I was in England in December, and it was very, very cold, I heard that Princess Diana had spoken about this thermal underwear.
Really?
The beauty of it is, if you wear that, I don't know so much about you, Rosemary, but I find I can wear light clothes if I have thermal underwear. And
Well, I
it's very
haven't tried it
convenient.
yet.
But you don't freeze, and it's brilliant. Wonderful thing.
There are some of the guests, I believe, of the Shamrock Hotel, and I believe there's a convention there at the moment. They're situated on the side veranda facing Williamson Street, isn't it? And they're quite separate from where the Prince and Princess will be.
The Shamrock Hotel, of course, is a beautiful building, and perhaps we can talk a little bit more about that later on.
It has a colourful history, doesn't
A
it?
very colourful history, being recently restored and was officially opened by the then Premier of Victoria, Dick Hamer, on the 14th of April 1981. So it's nigh on 2 years since the hotel has been reopened after closing in 1974.
Actually, Dick Hamer did a very good thing in looking after the Shamrock, I believe. He did something with a great deal of foresight. He bought it for the state at something just over $200,000. And that's not a lot of money for the magnificent building it is. Certainly a lot of money's been spent on restoration and will be spent. But it's a tourist attraction to this beautiful town, and it's part of our history, and it's certainly worth hanging on to.
It's rather like our theme at the moment, isn't it? The Shamrock is one of those buildings we must keep. Imagine what it would be like without it. And that's how I feel about the royal family, too.
Oh, I hope we never lose them.
That's right.
Here's a delightful shot of an expectant young girl waiting with her bouquet of flowers. I hope she gets the opportunity to hand them to the princess. Some of those little children must be very cold, Rosemary.
Oh, they really must be. They really must be. And standing for long periods of time. There's one with her leg warmers on. Now that's what I call good thinking.
That's right.
Give it a hitch there.
There are a lot of people there, aren't there?
Right.
Must be a huge crowd.
Now, I do know that people are coming from all parts of Victoria, from Swan Hill and beyond, making the trip down today, because it's one of the few opportunities that people get to see royalty at such a close level, if you like.
I suppose all the local farmers and the people who are in agriculture all around this area will be coming in, most of them who can get away anyway. Certainly the wives.
I'm sure of that.
And so on, yes.
All with their flags.
I should think the shops will be doing a roaring trade, Rosemary. What do you think?
Well,
this extra crowd?
I would think it would be very good for Bendigo all round today. Certainly the shops are closed, most of them, for the period that the Prince and Princess are here, for that hour or so.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people in town, and that's only, well, it has to be good for town. The flag people have certainly made a profit, I'd say, on the day already. But that's lovely to see too. Let's think Australia. Let's be proud of our country and wave our flags. I'd like to see a lot more flags flying from buildings and people really feeling more national.
I thought the other day it might be a good business to sell flagpoles.
Yes, yes. The only thing is you have to have a house big enough to handle a flagpole. Better sell them to all the businesses.
Yes.
The highlight of the royal couple's visit today will no doubtedly be the appearance of Sun Lung, the dragon. And for people, especially out of town, who may not be aware that for the first time in some 40 or 50 years, Sun Lung did not make his appearance at Christmas time, at Easter time, because of the very heavy rain we had here that day. And although the primary producers were rejoicing, I don't think anybody really complained about the rain because of the drought. It's unfortunate that it happened on Easter Monday afternoon and therefore prevented Sun Lung from appearing. Although the Chinese do say that he only makes one appearance a year, and perhaps that was the reason why it rained that day, so that he still only had to make his one appearance for the year.
Actually, they've been busy keeping him awake, haven't they, for this special occasion. He normally goes back to sleep straight after the Easter Monday procession, but he's been teased and the firecrackers have been kept going to keep him awake, and he'll make his big appearance. And in fact, today, for the first time, bow 9 times to the Prince, which is a very great honour, especially from a dragon who considers himself a king anyway. A Chinese dragon, special dragon. And 9 times is apparently the male number. And I'm very interested about that. I'd like to know what the female number is. But normally he will bow 3 times. Today he will bow 9 times to the Prince.
There's some very British subjects by the look of that.
That looks
Michael.
pretty British, doesn't it? It is, to the core, I'd say. Yes, one thing about the dragon is it being of a royal personage in its own right. It's rather interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting.
And it has 2 attendants. I presume, I only assume that in royal language, one is an equerry in waiting, and the other's a lady in waiting.
Well, there you can see the crowd outside the Shamrock and all those people on the rooftops now who are opposite the Shamrock, all clamouring for that glimpse of the royal couple. And as the camera goes down pell-mell, you can see all those crowds of people who are lined up expectantly waiting. On the rooftop of the
That
Royal
looks a bit
Mail
precarious.
Hotel, that's a
Yes,
bit
I was
precarious,
just
doesn't it?
wondering about
Yes.
that.
Yeah. I hope it's a strong balcony. They're getting more and more on it.
It's that mad dash when they leave the Highbury Street Mall and go by car around Pall Mall to the Shamrock that I'm a little concerned about, because especially little children in the rush to try and get a second glimpse of the Prince and Princess, it's going to be pretty pandemonium.
Now that noise you can hear there is the police helicopter hovering overhead. We've just seen a police car arrive on the scene, so perhaps the Royals are not that far away from us now.
One of the interesting aspects of this tour, I think, has been the general behaviour and sensitivity of the police. I think they've been absolutely outstanding in all states. Wherever I've watched them, they've been larking and joking with the crowds. It's wonderful to see this when you can think of other countries and the problems they have.
We're very lucky, yes.
Here we're so lucky. We've got a benevolent and wonderful police force. And their relationship with the crowds, as we can see here, is so relaxed.
And please don't book me on the way home tonight, Mr. Policeman.
Yes.
We think you're terrific. No, this morning they were wonderful too. Because they do have to keep everything orderly and people do get rested.
There you can see some of the attendants that are required. I think that's John's ambulance, is it? And others. There are all sorts of helpers who turn out on these occasions.
Well, she may look a little tired, but at least she looks warm, doesn't she, Rosemary?
Yeah, she's rugged up, that one. They're all enjoying themselves. Nobody looks unhappy. From the very young to the not so young. But they were happy. They had their thermoses and their rugs and they were settled in there. It was just like the the line-up to get tickets for the for the Melbourne Grand Final of the football there this morning.
Yes,
they were there and ready.
We spoke to a few earlier on. Some of them have been there, I think, the earliest one from about 20 to 7 this morning.
That's right.
You know, they say funny things, children. I think they must have had some great fun when they were asking them. I remember once Prince Philip asking a little boy who's just like that boy there, and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm here."
Straight to the point, I mean to say.
That's perfect answer, yeah. Here's one playing a game on his own, playing cricket.
I've noticed a difference in the Princess of Wales since she arrived here in Australia. She seems to have become more confident, she seems more relaxed, and in general, the way she's carrying herself and speaking to people, she really does seem to have grown a little during this visit. And perhaps Australia's been good for her too, because they certainly love her here. There's been no bad publicity.
I think there's a lot in that, Rosemary. You know, when Prince Charles came here, he came out as a young lad going to school. He went to Timbertop, and he came back an assured young man. He came back very much relaxed, and a young man or a young boy who knew what he was doing, and it had done him a lot of good. And he formed a great affection for Australia, and they for him. I think the same thing is going on right in front of us now.
With the Princess.
With the Princess. She has wondered what we're like.
Of course, she did make a quick flight here, you remember, Michael, before the engagement was announced. Right. So she did have a quick look at it.
A quick look. But I think this kind of thing is in a different climate, isn't it?
It
I'm
certainly
sure you'd agree.
Is. Gosh, how
So
different.
she's now seeing love being transmitted, if you like, directly.
Exactly.
And that must have an effect.
Exactly.
I suppose she must have also wondered how she would be accepted by the people in general.
You'd be humble. You'd be. You wouldn't think anything more than extreme humility in coming. But then suddenly you feel this love, and it wouldn't make you change very much, but it would give you much more assurance.
That's right.
And you can see that every day, I think. Marvellous thing.
I think any one who has made the comments that the Princess of Wales has made in the press recently, or actually in England before she came here, she admitted to being, for a start, a bit of a dunce about maths, which I thought was lovely. And she said she's never really understood the 24-hour clock. Oh, and also that older sisters are always a bit bossy. I mean, it has to make friends with other children, doesn't it? You make that kind of comment.
I love that 24-hour clock, because it's because of my wife and I, we have great problems there. I've been using it all my life.
Of course.
But It's a big jump to come from a kindergarten school and straight into this, isn't it, Rosie?
It certainly is.
No, there's a sword fight going on in the middle of the street.
Well, we have to warm up.
Musketeers, I think. Look at them, marvellous. What entertainment. I think they're cheering too.
Won't be long now, boys and girls.
Yes, no doubt the mothers must have their hands full, keeping them all contained until the great moment, mustn't they?
And then even fuller trying to hang on to them afterwards.
As you can see, as the crowd builds up, every vantage point is taken up. That is the RSL building in Pall Mall, and that is where the royal couple will drive along. As they come out one end of the mall, they drive around to the other end. And as we speak,
there's the car.
there's the car.
Oh, people are rushing in, trying to have a peek.
And the crowd builds up now, almost to excitement level, isn't it, Rosemary, as the car comes into
You
view,
can
preceded by
feel
the
it.
police car.
Yes. The royal standard fluttering in the wind, preceded by a police car.
I'm absolutely staggered at the size of the crowd.
Yes, it's very hard for us to give an estimate of the crowd. I think we were expecting somewhere around the 30 to 40,000 mark, and I'd say we probably won't be very far out.
Certainly tens of thousands of people.
And they've all appeared suddenly at the last minute, which is so
Here they
like
are.
magic.
Gleaming Rolls Royce there.
Now, this is an interesting thing. Michael, the cars that are supplied, obviously they would have to be different cars for Ballarat early this morning and
That's
for
right.
Bendigo today.
They're leapfrogging.
Yes.
Yes, this one would have been sent here, another one to Ballarat. And yet another car will be waiting in Albury to go to Holbrook or to Remarkable.
Waiting for our first good look in Bendigo of the Prince and Princess of Wales. His Royal Highness Prince Charles and the Princess.
And as the Royal Highnesses alight from the car, they're received by Councillor Joe Pearce, the Mayor of Bendigo, and Mrs. Ilona Gertz, the Mayoress of Bendigo.
The Princess is very warm by looks. It appears to be a light fabric, a floral, and a lovely soft shade of almost turquoise, between a turquoise and an aqua. Matching hat, but the jacket is interesting. It's quilted fabric, and that will keep her warm. Unpressed pleats at the front of the skirt, and the length of the skirt is a little shorter than she's been wearing on most of the trip. Actually, I noticed that most of her dresses were much longer than we've been wearing here in Australia. Hemlines seem to have shot up considerably here in Australia in the last few months, but the princesses have been very long. I checked this out with the English magazines, the fashion magazines, and they are being worn very long in England. Quite different to the length being worn in Australia, but she looks beautiful, and already she's being handed flowers by excited children.
Yes, one wonders what happens to all the flowers, Rosemary. It is an interesting thing, isn't it, that with the royal entourage, of course, there is a lady in waiting to Princess Diana, Miss Anne Beckworth-Smith, and she would look after that side of it, wouldn't she?
She takes them from the princess, and she passes them in turn to somebody who's handy, might be a detective or a messenger, who then put them in a car, and they go to the nearest women's or children's hospital.
But it's the thrill for the children to actually hand them to the prince or princess.
Doesn't she look wonderful? Look at the thrill that girl's having, don't
Such a long day from Ballarat to Bendigo. Little hat,
And she certainly looks very relaxed, doesn't she?
sensibly dressed, and of course, I prefer the princess personally without hats. I think her hair is beautiful, but on a day like today with the wind blowing, it really is a very sensible thing to wear a hat, particularly well anchored, I would say.
There must be some mighty pins holding it down in this
Exactly.
wind, right? But, Rosemary, is this going to bring a great flood of hats into the world now, do you think? Or
Well, that can only create jobs and be good for business.
right,
And I
very
love
good.
hats, you know. I
Yes.
think they're wonderful. They really do dress up any outfit.
Yes. Prince Charles really gives the impression that he enjoys this. You see, he's a very friendly person by nature. He loves people. And you can see here, look how normally he's chatting and how fascinated they are. He has great love, this man.
And when you believe that they've done hours of the same thing in Ballarat already today, and in Melbourne yesterday, and they still look fresh and can still be
Yes.
interested in meeting the people.
Yes. What a program it's been, hasn't it?
What a successful program
Absolutely.
too.
I think that's an old Geelong grammarian tie he's wearing. Paul, would you know?
No, I can't see from here
I
exactly.
can't
Michael.
quite see, but I think it is, yes.
It's interesting that the mall has been divided off, of course, to make a laneway for them to walk up, if you like, and as they did in Melbourne, the princess is going to one side and the prince to the other.
Yes. Because the mall is so perfectly suited for this kind of operation.
And as I said, that of course he's come back to be on the same size as
Yes.
Lady Diana now, and she's
Yeah.
swapped over, as a matter of fact.
Yes, well that's good, because they don't look as though they have adopted any one side.
No.
doesn't it?
No, that gives everyone look
Yes,
at the
everybody's getting a
excitement
go.
and the wonderful expression on the faces of the children.
Yes, look at that.
Oh,
Gosh,
quick, can I have a photograph,
Yes.
please?
reaching through.
Actually, we were discussing it must be a photographer's dream, the number of rolls of film that must be shot in a brief half an hour.
Well, good for business right throughout the country.
That's true. I must say, she does look delightful, doesn't she?
Absolutely delightful.
That
She has a
smile is so
lovely-
radiant.
So ended up with a flag there as well as the flowers.
I think the quilted jacket is one of the most sensible things I've seen. It's attractive, it's very pretty, and it must be beautifully warm too.
Yes, very sensible. Moving along gently and talking to the people.
Hands appearing out of the crowd. That's the
Please hold my hand, yes.
Yes.
Seems to be wearing a gold bracelet there, a rather lovely chunky gold bracelet on her left arm.
This really is a magnificent opportunity for the people of Central Victoria to meet the Royal Highnesses. They have a unique opportunity here of being at first hand, don't they?
Mm.
And it's more than just people, it's history. It's the future King of England, and at this stage in our history here in Australia, we have the two direct heirs to the throne in our country, something that is just unheard of in past history.
He's really enjoying himself. Look at the smile and so on, and animation. And he's seeing something interesting about each person, which is so part of the training that he's had from his father and his mother has been is being shown all the time.
He appears to have lost a little weight over the last month, I would say. Michael, would
I
you agree
wouldn't
with
be
that? He's
surprised.
looking
Yes.
decidedly slim there.
Yes. He looks very fit though, doesn't he?
Oh, yes.
Very fit. He seems to be just the right weight.
Of course, it's not so many years ago that he came to Bendigo by himself when he opened the showgrounds here in Bendigo.
And did the full tour, didn't he, of the gold mine through to the Joss house, and saw much of Bendigo, drove a tram.
Yes.
An uncle of mine was out on the veranda of one of the houses as the tram went by with Prince Charles at the at the wheel of the tram, and they had learner plates on the back of the tram, which I thought was a marvellous touch.
I think that would have been in, what, 1974?
That would have been in 74, that's
Yes.
right. That was the 8th royal visit to Bendigo, and this is the 9th. And it's rather interesting to think that there have been 9 royal visits to this magnificent city.
9 seems to be the lucky, or the number, because of the dragon is
The
going to bow
dragon.
9 times, the 9th visit, and the princess is the 9th Princess of Wales.
Yes. I was rather shattered to see that the one I took a small part in 1954, there wasn't another visit till Prince Charles came in 74, 20 years later.
I wonder what we were doing in 20 years.
My goodness.
Such a shame.
I'd like to have those 20 years again.
Of course, I think today's modern technology makes it a lot easier for them to get around, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
Yes.
travel arrangements have improved so much
Yes.
that it makes it that much easier.
When I first started, the aeroplane wasn't accepted as a mode of travel. You remember when the late king, the Queen Mother, went with the princesses to South Africa. That was in a battleship, the Vanguard. And slowly but surely, we had to get across this problem of getting into aeroplanes which everybody thought was unsafe.
Well, the royal couple certainly seem to be enjoying themselves along this walk, don't they? It's certainly not a matter of duty. They're really enjoying themselves.
Yes.
That's great to see.
Relaxed and happy. Maybe it's a little warmer. The sun is shining after all, and they're protected
It'd
there
have
in
to
the
be
melt
warmer
from the wind.
It'd have to be warmer than Ballarat this morning, I would think.
Yeah.
Right in amongst the people.
Yes. Do you think there are any lip readers watching who can understand what's going on?
I'm sure there are.
I'm sure there are. Aren't there?
Yeah. Did you notice the prince then just put his arm reassuringly around the waist of the princess? He has a habit of doing that on,
Yes.
on many of these occasions. It's almost like saying, I'm here, I'm a backup for you.
Yes.
And it's a lovely touch.
And it's almost conveying something else, that you're doing a super job, you know, and everything's great.
You must be very
Marvellous
proud
to
of her.
see. Yeah. Yes, you can see that.
Being
you can
handed
see
back.
there's the Aquarian waiting. The Aquarian waiting is wearing what are known as aiguillettes, which are they used to be pen and ink for taking notes and so on,
I see.
but they were worn then by an equestrian aiguillette. But it's a device for recognition. You can figure out who it is.
Looks very dashing.
Yeah. That's a good one. Look at that one. Great thing.
Of course, his equerry this time is an Australian equerry,
Yes,
Wing Commander Robert Mears.
that's right. That we started that some time ago. As a matter of fact, I remember saying to the Queen that I thought we ought to have equerries from the country go visiting, because they know the country. They're fully in touch and conversant with everything. That proved to be a very good thing.
Do you miss your days with the royal household, Michael?
Oh, I do. Mind you, I've got another sort of life altogether, but I enjoyed every second. You couldn't fail to not enjoy working with people like this.
Yes. And do you still visit Buckingham Palace when you return to London?
Yes, I do. They're very kind, and they still even want to see me, which is something, you know. And I
That's
very
lovely.
much want to see them. Yeah.
Well, there's the scene of pure excitement as the couple make their way slowly up the Mall to the rostrum. And it's good to see that plenty of time has been allowed for this meet the people part of the tour, because I think that's most important. Some of the beautiful flowers, my goodness.
They really are lovely. Hard to believe we've just had this terrible drought.
See, even a policeman got a photograph then. That was rather cute, wasn't it? Perhaps he's taking it for somebody else.
Probably, I would
Yes,
guess.
probably is. Somebody at the back. Well, you can see the immediate security there quite easily. Not very obvious, but there.
There's quite a lot of plain clothes security men, by the look of it.
I should say at least two close, yes. Who's the girl is, I don't quite know. As you say, perhaps she's a police lady.
In the
I
check skirt. Yes.
If she isn't, she might not like that.
There's the scene as the royal couple make their way up the Mall. There's the scene to the exit of the Mall, and this is where they'll be driving down the road, around the corner, down Pall Mall to the Shamrock Hotel for the performance of Sun Lung. And no doubt while this Meet the People part of the tour is going on, the Chinese Association are getting ready with Sun Lung and all that's involved with that, because it really is a massive display to come out and parade before the royal couple.
I wonder what the lady waiting would do if the car disappeared. She'd disappear in turn, I think.
Oh, for goodness, the flowers, they certainly have become part of royal tours, and the non-stop acceptance of flowers is absolutely amazing.
I'm absolutely tickled pink with the way these police are working. You see, they're so gentle and so easy. They're helping them to come forward. Yes, it's marvellous. Rosemary, she's got a very soft look to her as she's talking to these people, hasn't she?
I think she's perfectly at
Enchanting.
home with everyday people. That
Yeah.
seems to be... she has a more relaxed expression on her face today here in the Mall than that she had last night, even at the concert. Yes, I
Yes.
thought she looked
Yes.
just a little uptight as she met the artists after the concert last night.
It was a beautiful dress last night.
Yes, not unlike the wedding gown. I would like to see her in different. I mean, how could you better that beautiful black gown? She first appeared
Yes,
with
that
Prince
was-
Charles and created such a stir in it.
That was a winner. Yeah.
It certainly was a winner, but for some reason she has never done it since. Anything
Yes.
quite as dashing or daring.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe a word has been spoken.
Oh, I shouldn't think so. No, I think it's a preference of hers. It'll probably appear again. She is also wearing a lot of her clothes, over and over, and some clothes have been seen. And somebody remarked on this the other day, and I thought, well, that's perfectly normal.
Yes.
Well, yes.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
The wardrobe for this trip alone must have
Yeah.
been, terribly expensive. The cut of her garments is superb. They've all been made beautifully. The quilting in this particular jacket is spot on. Absolutely beautiful. It almost appears to be a skirt with perhaps a white blouse, because the little white cuffs are showing through, and there is an edge of white showing through under the jacket around her neck.
And Rosemary, a delightful hat.
It is lovely, isn't it? The tulle and the little flowers at the back, all in the exact shading. And her magnificent blonde hair, which never looks different. Her hairdressers must do a fantastic job. Actually, Michael, you were saying that when I commented that there are 2 hairdressers with her on the tour, that they actually do have one going ahead to the next place and setting up in readiness for her. Is that right?
Well, I was told that there were 2. Whether that information is correct or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
believe
I
it.
immediately felt, my goodness, that is the solution to the problem of getting one ahead of you, so they're ready to do their job as soon as you get there. Otherwise, this one's behind you, trying to catch up. That's a hopeless situation to be in. This is
And when you think about hair alone, for example, it would have to be done every day. It would have to be washed and blow-waved and, spot on
Yes.
at least once a day.
Well, you know all about this.
She must be delighted to have a day's rest in between.
Right.
Take off her makeup and brush her hair out and forget it for a day.
Look at that, reaching in for, yeah. One wonders what condition the hands are in at the end of a day. They must be pretty worn out, the hands.
What a magical sight that is, as though Princess Diana wends her way down towards the rotunda. I think she sort of lost Prince Charles somewhere. It looks sort of a bit of bedlam to me, but...
Organised bedlam.
Organised bedlam, because
I
they've
don't
been
suppose
enjoying
he's gone shopping, has he? Or
No, the shops are closed.
he's gone...
I can't really imagine the prince going shopping. The princess maybe. She
He
was
won't be
quite used to
far.
that, wasn't she? Attending sales.
Yeah.
And
And now we can see why those people arrived early this morning, because as you look back, the crowd extends 15, 20 deep behind the ones in front.
They're well over the line that was marked. So that means there's about double the crowd. Yeah.
she's found some extra interest there. Taking a little extra time to talk to some people.
There's a good conversation going on there. Yeah.
And there's the prince. We lost him for a while, but we see him there
Yes.
again,
Yes.
being slowly urged along by...
He's not far away. He's right there. Coming up to have a word. That's sweet. That's
Again,
super.
his protective
Great.
arm just touching
Yep.
the princess as they come together.
Mm.
And one or two break through the crowd. It's the Bendigo advertiser being waved in the foreground. Magnificent issue this morning.
Actually, when you think about it, the walk from the entrance to the mill up to the rotunda part of the mill is not very far. It's taken them a long, long time to get there.
Normally, what, about a minute and a half?
Yes,
Yeah.
at the most.
It wouldn't be 100 yards, would it?
No, not at all.
So it shows you how many people they've seen in such a short time and talked to.
And now we're getting up close to the official part of the visit. This is where an official welcome to Bendigo will take place by the Mayor of Bendigo, Councillor Joe Pearce, who will address and welcome the royal couple, and no doubt His Royal Highness Prince Charles will respond. Councillor Pearce, who is the Mayor of Bendigo, served 2 terms in the City Council. He served 1 term in 1972, and is at present serving his 2nd term. And his fiancée, Elena Goetz, is at present the Mayoress of Bendigo.
Actually, the Mayoress is looking very smart in a black and white, what appears to be a loose-fitting dress or even a coat.
After the playing of the National Anthem, Councillor Joe Pearce.
Your Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. On behalf of the citizens of Bendigo, the Premier City of Victoria, I extend a warm and sincere welcome to your Royal Highnesses. It is an honour and a privilege for all citizens to be able to share our city with you today. For as your Royal Highness is aware, Bendigo is a city that is proud of its heritage, which has helped bond the community into the self-reliant and positive unit it is today. Since your Royal Highness's last visit to Bendigo in 1974, an unparalleled period of development and progress has occurred in this city. These achievements of Bendigo have not been due to federal or state government assistance or subsidies, but have resulted from the initiatives and application of our citizens. The progress that has been achieved has not been confined to the material aspects of the physical type development that is apparent, but has also occurred in the less tangible, although equally important areas of community support and self-help. As a result of this willingness of people to make an effort to help themselves, Bendigo was recently awarded the prestigious title of Victoria's Premier Town for the period 1982 to 1985. The title itself is not what we cherish, but rather the recognition of what a community can achieve if it works together. Australia, Victoria, and particularly this area of the state, have for some period now experienced difficult times. And although this has caused many people to face hardships, it has only served to reinforce the already immense courage and fortitude of the people of Bendigo. And the difficult times, rather than presenting obstacles, have become challenges. Your royal visit here today is a highlight for us that will contribute substantially to the stimulus to achieve an even greater level of progress in the period until your next visit. Your Royal Highness, it is indeed an honour and privilege for the citizens of Bendigo to be able to share our city with you, and we would appreciate it if you would convey to Her Majesty, the Queen, our loyalty and devotion, and please return to Bendigo with your family as soon as possible.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, while my wife and I were walking through the shopping mall just now, we discovered that many of you had been waiting here since 10 or 11 o'clock this morning. And we're both enormously touched that you should have even considered doing so, particularly on a cold and very blustery day, but not quite as cold as Ballarat, where we've just come from. So I suspect that after sitting here most of the day, the last thing you want to do is listen to me speak. But nevertheless, my wife and I are greatly touched by such a warm welcome here. We've received an amazing series of welcomes all over Australia, and they seem to get warmer the nearer we get to Victoria. The last time I came here, I think, was in 1974. And since then, I think there has been a considerable increase in the size of the population, perhaps twice as many as there were before. But I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate all of you on becoming the Premier Town, or receiving the Premier Town of Victoria Award. We are both very sad not to have more time to see some of the things that have made Bendigo famous. For instance, the Central Deborah gold mine, which I must say seems an excellent idea to have preserved it as a working exhibit. I have a feeling that the reason why we haven't been taken anywhere near a gold mine while we've been in Victoria is because when Prince Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, who was Queen Victoria's second son, came to Australia in 1867, he came to Bendigo and was invited to select a gold nugget to mark his visit. And he chose one that was worth £1,000, which was thought to be overdoing it. And I suspect that's why we haven't been asked to go anywhere near a gold mine. But ladies and gentlemen, coming here helps to make us feel at home. For a start, you have several streets and public places with names like Pall Mall and Charing Cross. And we've met several Londoners and people from all over the United Kingdom who are now living in this area here. The Mayor mentioned the fact that you've had difficult times and hardships which have had to be faced by many people in this area under the present circumstances, which I fear are common all over the world. And I have a nasty feeling as well that an operation like today can't really be all that good for business in Bendigo. But nevertheless, I'm convinced that your unparalleled level of community involvement and initiative will work wonders for you in the end. The great secret, it seems to me, is to allow individual initiative and talent to flourish within a community and for its benefit. Society is based on individuals and not on a collective whole. And it's through individual determination and effort that you have all done so much to conserve those all-important aspects of your past which surround us and which can act as a reminder of the energetic, hopeful spirit which imbued your forefathers when they came to tackle the merciless elements of this great country. And they can also help, I think, to inspire new hope for the future. Mr. Mayor, I will certainly take back your very kind messages of goodwill and loyalty to Her Majesty when we return after our tour here and in New Zealand, which is shortly coming up. But both my wife and I can only repeat again our very warmest thanks for your marvelous welcome and for the hospitality you've given us here. Thank you very much.
Well, certainly I think you'd have to agree, a fine speech by
He has
Prince Charles.
He has a natural delivery, hasn't he? Now it's a beautiful, balanced speech, very relaxed, and very. Have you noticed the superbly simple English he uses too? There are no great phrases or flourishing words. I think it's ideal.
Now the royal couple make their way to the Rolls-Royce once again for a very short trip around the block, if you like. It's a matter of probably a quarter of a mile, I'd say. And they are going to drive around to Shamrock, from where they shall see the appearance of the world's longest dragon, Sun Lung.
One of the problems here is to keep the crowd back so you can open the car's door.
It's not easy.
Not often.
And in fact, while we're talking about the car door, the door attendant here is Linda Perkins, who is a sister of the first door attendant, Julie Perkins, who greeted the royal couple when they arrived in Bendigo. And both sisters have been members of the St John's Ambulance Brigade, and this is their finest moment, I think, to be opening the door for the royal couple.
Very
of course,
proud moment.
both Linda and Julie have been in the St John's Ambulance Brigade for a long time.
I had to smile during the Prince's speech there, Michael and Paul. Did you hear him at the beginning of the speech? He said, the last thing you want to do is listen to me speak, and someone from the crowd called out, yes, we do. We do want to hear you.
Yeah.
And I have to agree with that. He's a pleasure to listen to, and in fact the whole visit is a wonderful pleasure.
Perhaps as the car's going out, Michael, you explain to us the standards on top of the roof.
Yes. Well, that's the Royal Standard, but it carries on it the special device which indicates the Prince of Wales. It's known, I think, as a label in heraldic terms. And you'll see that little white, I can show it to you better, I think, on my cufflinks, which, there it is. That was the princess. You see that has a white line across. It's hard to see because it's flapping, but that's how that works. Well, one of the other things I think that will interest you is if you're a member of the entourage, the car takes off. You have the job of getting into your car and not missing it. And the number of occasions that I've missed it and been locked in the crowd, I can hardly count.
You could see the members of the household rushing to get into the white car behind.
Yes.
Just then.
Now, this is certainly a leisurely trip around the block so that as many people as possible can see the royal couple.
Yes.
No doubt they'll be pleased to get in the car and out of the cold, I would think.
I think does it look like 3 in the front at the moment? It does. That's quite unusual. Somebody's getting a lift.
And there's the scene as the car makes its way around the fountain, or this one side of the fountain. In fact, proceeds down the wrong side of the road to the Shamrock Hotel.
And the roar of the crowd as they came around, they've been waiting around there all this time for their first glimpse of the Prince and Princess. Thousands of people in Pall Mall. Actually, that was interesting. There weren't very many there early this morning. It was everyone was in the Hargrave Street Mall waiting. And now as the car does go down Pall Mall, thousands are situated there waiting for just that brief glimpse, just a few seconds.
It's very long, is it, really?
Talking of standards, there's a good story about his father's standard. It was first flown at the town hall of Newcastle in the north of England. And when it fluttered out into the wind, a great roar went up in the crowd. And he turned around and he asked me, he said, please find out why there was that reaction. And a policeman nearby said, well, don't you see, sir, those black and white bars, which are the bars of Battenberg, that's Newcastle United.
That was quick.
The royal couple will be met on their arrival by Mr. Russell Jack, who's the president of the Bendigo Chinese Association, and Mrs. Jack.
One of the oldest families, Chinese families, here in Bendigo. The Jacks have been here for a long, long time.
In fact, Russell Jack's been actively working in the Chinese Association for the past 38 years. And he's one of the organisers of the Chinese Easter festivities. He holds a life governorship to the Bendigo-based hospital and the home and hospital for the aged, like Rosemary, I presume.
Yes, I do actually, and I'm very proud of them.
And Russell's father immigrated from China in 1900. His mother was born to Chinese parents at Elmore. And now the royal entourage make their way inside the Shamrock Hotel, where they have the chance for a slight breather. In fact, they have the Princess Room, which has been especially named after Princess Diana. They have the chance in there for just a few moments to freshen up. And they'll also be meeting Mr. John Stoddard, who's the manager of the Shamrock Hotel, Mr. and Mrs. Darryl McClure. Darryl McClure is the chairman of the Bendigo Trust. Mr. and Mrs. Derham, formerly of the Bendigo Pottery, and they've been involved with this royal visit for quite a long time. Unfortunately, Councillor Dick Turner won't be there to meet the royal couple. He was scheduled to do so, but I understand he has been taken ill and can't be with them this afternoon.
I'm sure, Paul, that he'll be watching this if it's at all possible from his hospital bed, and we wish you well. Dick Turner, an old friend, and in fact he was here, and I think Mayor, when Prince Charles visited Bendigo on his last visit, so it will be an extra sad moment that he's missing today.
Also to greet the royal couple will be Councillor and Mrs. Bob Campbell of the city of Bendigo. And whilst inside, they'll be presented with some local wines and a Bendigo brooch and matching cufflink set. And they then come to the balcony to watch the performance of Bendigo's dragon Sun Lung. And you can see the Clan MacLeod getting ready there for the festivities. Just while we have this break, though, we might return to a scene earlier in the day, and this was when the royal couple made their touchdown to Bendigo at the Bendigo airport.
Despite the biting wind, there was almost a carnival atmosphere here as the royal plane touched down in Bendigo. The Bendigo Youth Band struck up a rousing welcome for Prince Charles and Lady Diana as the official guests move into position. The cheering and clapping reached fever pitch well before the sleek Air Force plane taxied to a standstill on the Bendigo tarmac. The crowd was enormous, spilling out onto the roadway and surging against flimsy barricades. For the royal visitors, their first glimpse from the aircraft window reveals a mass of wide-eyed children with beaming faces, waving Australian flags and throwing their hands wildly into the air. A tense moment as the door swings open and the Prince and Princess of Wales face the adoring crowds. Lady Diana, dressed wisely against the chill autumn winds, was quick to warm to the enthusiastic reception. First, a nervous welcome to Central Victoria by Strathfield Say Shire President Brian Keogh and his wife Barbara. Then, as protocol demands, next to meet the royal couple were Bendigo's elected representatives. Bruce Reid MLC and his wife Jenny, John and Maggie Radford, Midlands MP Bill Ebury and his wife Anne, Bendigo MP David Kennedy and wife Helen, Federal Member John Brumby and Strathfield Say Shire Secretary David Wright and wife Margaret. Then a thrill for the waiting crowds as Diana and Charles moved towards the barriers. 400 official guests flanked the royal couple on their right, including representatives from local government, service clubs and the RSL. 300 excited children from the Kennington Primary School could not believe their luck as the royal couple passed by. Following a familiar pattern, Diana quickly stole the hearts of Bendigo. Then more handshakes, posies of flowers, and an avalanche of questions about baby William. Walking towards the terminal building, a special wave and time to chat with disabled people from the Peter Harcourt Centre, children from the McDonald's School for the Deaf, and more school children from the White Hills and Holy Rosary primary schools. A big moment for girl guide Julie Spoforth as she opens the door of the royal car and the Prince and Princess of Wales step in. The airport and roadway bristled with uniformed police, plain-clothes security men and a special task force assigned to the royal tour. As the royal Rolls-Royce moved slowly away, thousands of children followed, with many other school children lining both sides of the roadway. And no, Prince Charles was not wearing the St John cufflinks made from Bendigo gold.
And that was the scene earlier on, while we were awaiting the arrival of the royal couple. They were, of course, about 15 to 20 minutes late. But that didn't deter the crowd, Rosemary, did it?
It certainly did not, and the wind was blowing out there at the airport. Gosh, it looked cold. It doesn't look as cold in the city itself as it did at the airport. Also, a good view in one of those shots of her coming off the plane of her beautiful engagement ring. You could really see it sparkling there in the sunshine.
This, I think, is the highlight of the day, both for the royal couple and for all the people gathered to watch, and that's why there's been such a crowd along Pall Mall, because they also get the opportunity to see the dragon, which they haven't seen for over a year now. And I think to those who haven't seen it, like Colonel Parker, it will be quite something for the viewers to see.
I think it will serve to remind everybody, too, of Bendigo, don't you? It's something that will quite unusual and outstanding, and it'll be a moment in this particular tour of Australia to remember.
Some of the early parts of the procession are beginning to ready themselves for the royal couple to come out on the balcony. Just before we go to that, though, before they do come out, we would like to show you just a little bit of the awakening of the dragon ceremony, which occurs just before Easter and before Sun Lung comes from his yearly sleep and is awoken. And this is some of the scenes on Easter Sunday.
Established in 1953. This, of course, is their 30th anniversary. They've still got 3 original members still playing in the band. And for the first time, ladies have joined the playing ranks.
And of course the Clan MacLeod band will be, the Clan MacLeod band, as well as appearing at the Awakening of the Dragon ceremony, will be appearing today as well.
That's right.
Now this is the actual Awakening of the Dragon ceremony. It is a very complicated procedure indeed, and this ceremony takes place on Easter Sunday every year.
Sleepy old dragon, but magnificent workmanship in the head. Expression. E.T., eat your heart out. Look at that. The Chinese community do a wonderful job of this. They work so hard at the choreography of the awakening of the dragon.
It's interesting, this ceremony is of Bendigo origin. It's performed nowhere else in the world. It includes the famous Southern Lions, which always appear with the dragon, Chinese dancing, martial arts, and a parade of professional costumes, and the only Easter performance of the Northern or Peking Lions, although I do believe that today the Northern Lions are making their one and only appearance, which is most unusual. It's also interesting that on this particular occasion, on Easter Sunday, the Sun Lung requires some 5,000 crackers to awaken him.
Little butterflies slowly opening their wings.
As you can see from the crowd there, the weather on Easter Sunday at least, although not on Easter Monday, but on Easter Sunday, it was a beautiful day here in Bendigo. It was very conducive to the Awakening of the Dragon ceremony. Now back live to our location spot, and you can see the procession getting ready. The procession is divided into 6 sections. It has the lead or greeting section, a religious section, a military section, a princess section, a children's student section, and finally the culmination with the dragon section.
Apparently the Sunday awakening, a little of that has to do with the fact that, of course, the dragon is supposedly deaf. And, of course, loud noises have to be made to waken him and try to keep him awake. poor darling. Crackers and yelling.
And by the
Very
roar
nice.
of the crowd, it sounds as though Prince and Princess of Wales are making their appearance, and there they come out of the Varland room at the Shamrock Hotel to stand on the balcony and watch this magnificent procession. With them is the Mayoress of Bendigo, the Mayor of Bendigo, and Russell Jack. And as expected, they've walked to the very corner point of the Shamrock Hotel. A little bit colder on that corner because they're getting a little bit of wind, but it's not going to worry them by the
But
look
the
of it.
sun's out, all the colours are there, aren't they? It's good.
Prince Charles has taken a moment to comb his hair, I notice. He's looking all spruced up again. Roar of the children.
And now everything is in readiness for Sun Lung's only appearance for 1983. And first of all, we have leading the procession the Clan MacLeod Pipe Band once again, as Rosemary told you. It was established in 1953, and their anniversary this year, of course, being their 30th anniversary. And 3 of the original members are still playing on the band. And for the first time, ladies have joined the ranks. The drum major is Rod Tamlin, the pipe major Max Morris.
Dame Flora MacLeod, who is head of the clan MacLeod, that lives at Dunvegan Castle in Skye, would have been very proud of this.
She certainly would. There are the children. And the Chinese in national costume. Very colourful costumes, beautiful costumes.
Now, perhaps if we could explain a little as to what happens in the procession. We have the lead section, which comprises lanterns to light the way, gongs to tell the people the procession is approaching, an open road banner which clears the road for the procession, 2 greeting banners, the King's Highway banner stating it's a royal or imperial procession, the Australian flag, a China banner, the Daigum Sand banner, which is a big gold mountain of Bendigo, and an old gong banner. That gives you a brief rundown of what's going to follow the Clan MacLeod band.
That's just a lovely picture. Look at the interest it's showing. They're looking into the western sun, aren't they now?
And now the start of the procession.
The Chinese, of course, have been part of Bendigo's history from the beginning, right back in the goldfields. When the first Chinese arrived, it was about 1850s, in teams or groups just to work the goldfields. Many died, in fact, on the fields, and some were treated rather cruelly by the populace of the town. The dragon is built of silk, cardboard, bamboo, mirrors and paper mache, and he's over 100 meters long. When he does appear, he is gigantic, the longest and biggest dragon in the world.
Prince is still worrying about his hair being on the balcony being blown down a little.
I notice it's thinning a little on top there. Aha.
Superb. The traffic lights are all clear, are they?
Preceding the dragon, we have the friends and companions of the dragon. We have the sun, moon, and night from the sky aspect of the dragon, 3 animals from the water aspect of the dragon, a butterfly from the sky aspect of the dragon, Chin Lin, the mythological creature that appears at time of great peace, the phoenix symbol of womanhood, the white tiger, the ruler of the earth, represents the west. Then there's the twin carp, in which the dragon is born, and the lion team, and this year, making their first appearance, 2 orange northern or Peking lions. This dragon actually replaced Lung, who was for many years in Bendigo the major attraction. Sun Lung was built in 1969 and first displayed in 1970. He has a length of 300 feet plus, with the extra 100 feet being added in 1980 to make him the longest dragon in the world.
We weren't going to be outdone here in Bendigo. We were going to have the biggest and the best, and rightly so. Actually, a group of Bendigo people got together and commissioned the new dragon, as I recall. Cyril Nicholson was one of those people, and as such, they've given something to Bendigo that is extremely colourful, quite beautiful. Exciting. There are the lions. Teasing and keeping awake of the dragon must go on. The noise continues. You don't want him to go to sleep in the middle of Pall Mall. He's said to be a spiritual dragon. He can produce wind and rain. I think he's brought the wind today, but thank goodness he hasn't brought the rain. Has 9 resemblances: the head of a camel, horns of a deer, eyes of a rabbit, ears of a cow, neck of a snake, my goodness me, belly of a frog, scales of a carp and claws of a hawk, and palm of a tiger. He's a very busy dragon.
It's also interesting, Rosemary, that the procession comprising Sun Lung and the attendant banner carriers, the maidens and lion dancers, involve some 350 people, so it really is a mammoth task by the Chinese Association today.
The Royal Highness is really enjoying this, isn't he? Watching it with great interest.
It's spectacular, it's colourful, and it's Bendigo's own. Can you see that? Magnificent colour. And the head is always carried by a member of the Jack family, or has
That's
been
correct.
for as far as I can remember back.
It is very, very heavy indeed, so they carry it only for short distances, and you can see them change over there.
Just then we had a
Just then
change
we had a
over
change,
here.
and they change about every 30 seconds or so because it's very, very heavy. See the Chinese gentleman teasing the dragon to keep him going.
Costumes are very colourful.
Quick question. Mr. Jack is answering quickly. I wonder who these lead attendants are. Do you see there's some out in front as well? Perhaps standing by in case of something happening.
All part of the... after all, the dragon is royalty. He has to have his own
He
court.
has to have his escort.
Of course. And he certainly has it today. Crackers.
Well, the royal couple certainly look as though they're enjoying that, don't they? Something they'll remember from Bendigo, no doubt.
Yes. They're getting a lot of fun. There's a lot of animated conversation going on.
And now he's bowing. There we go, 1. We may have missed 1 or 2 there. Yes. Magnificent mirrored effect, glinting in the sun.
It's a very elaborate bow, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
The prize is going backwards and forwards, and you get a sort of a run at it.
They're doing a very good job.
I imagine the noise of the crackers in front of them must be deafening also.
And again. And a quick change over at the head there for the next bow. 9 times to the heir to the throne of England.
A royal salute, if ever I heard one. Yes.
We've actually had 5 different dragons, I think, since the 1800s here in Bendigo, but of course this is the grandest of them all. And now he leaves the Shamrock Hotel and makes his way back to his resting place, where I believe he backs in for and curls up and goes back to sleep until the Easter fair next year.
In fact, the royal couple have moved around now, so they can see him proceeding down the street as he's gone past them.
Look at the length there.
And the full length of the dragon is some 300 feet.
There's the Golden City Pipe Band, the Bendigo Club Golden City Pipe Band.
The drum major Lyle Blake and pipe major David Suiters. This band was formed in 1951, and the drum major and two of its pipers have been with the band since its formation. It's the highest graded band in Bendigo, having recently successfully defended its state title in grade 2.
And now, of course, the police have to really work hard to keep the thousands and thousands of people back so that the royal couple will be able to leave the Shamrock Hotel. Seems like they're quite happy to stay for a while, doesn't it?
And that really gives you a great shot of how many people are in the streets of Bendigo at the moment.
Yes, the crowd have moved out of the barriers right up solidly through the street now. That's a great sight.
The excitement is really mounting. You can feel it in the air as they realize there's very little time left to say their goodbyes.
It really is an amazing sight to see that many people in the streets of Bendigo this afternoon.
Prince Charles just having a quick word with his private secretary then, Edward Adine. It's interesting, Edward Adine is the son of Michael Adine, who was the Queen's private secretary when I was there.
Keeping it in the family, Michael.
Keeping it in the family, yes.
And that's rather lovely that they've moved down the veranda to greet the guests of the hotel and their families. A
Some
little
of the staff you
unexpected.
can see there, the chef's cap on.
Yes.
But that's typical of this prince and princess. They really don't mind taking a little extra trouble to go out of their way to speak to people. A princess who's won the hearts of everyone in Australia. She's the first Englishwoman, by the way, to marry an heir to the throne for over 300 years.
By now he knows what everybody does and what they do in the hotel. There's a
Exactly.
whole rapid passage of information there.
One final round of applause before the royal couple enters the Shamrock Hotel once again. They'll proceed straight downstairs to the entrance foyer to exchange farewells with Mr. and Mrs. Jack and then leave for the Bendigo airport because, as we said, they were running a little bit late and they still are running some 20 minutes late, so they haven't endeavoured to make up any time at all, but have been happy to keep going at the same speed.
Thousands and thousands of excited people.
I must say the old Shamrock Hotel really looks magnificent today, and it is a credit to both the state government and also, of course, to Mr. John Stoddard, who's been responsible for much of the restoration of the Shamrock Hotel.
Yes, he has done a marvellous job at Bendigo, hasn't he?
He really has.
Wonderful thing. Because it's taken a lot of people in Bendigo to bring it to this point, hasn't it? It must
A
have
lot
been
of
work
years
great-
of work, yes.
That's right.
Well, the state government actually bought the hotel for $213,000 in December 1974, and it stood idle for a number of years until restoration work began in 1980. It's in fact the third Shamrock Hotel to have occupied the same site. First was built in 1854, demolished in 1859. The second was opened in 1860 and was demolished in 1897. And this new building was built soon after that and has stood the test of time ever since.
It's had some interesting characters associated with it, of course. Bendigo people, and I think people not only in Bendigo but right throughout Australia will remember Mrs. Smith and the colour she lent to the Shamrock in the years that she was in charge there. She really was a wonderful character. Many stories about Mrs. Smith in the Shamrock Hotel. Certainly very colourful stories. And sadly, she died not so long ago. She would have loved to have been here today to watch this happen in the magnificent hotel. But people like Dame Nellie Melba, famous people through the years have stayed in this hotel. In fact, it was Dame Nellie Melba who had the chimes of the clock stopped at night. They used to ring at night, and she really couldn't get any sleep. And it was because of her that the clock doesn't chime through the night hours. I'm sure the patrons of the Shamrock these days would be delighted about that.
Rosemary, I've been very impressed all of today with you two and with everybody else I've met here at the television station, because you all seem to know everybody else in Bendigo. And that's a marvellous thing. You seem to know everybody in the street, and wherever we go, I think it's a tremendous thing.
I think that's probably the benefit of the country community. Everybody seems to get together a lot more than perhaps the city folk do, which is a great thing.
Well, it gives a great feeling, and one of those feelings is one of the results of that is what Prince Charles was saying. It produces sort of things like the Mall and other operations that you're carrying out in Bendigo, and it's so much easier to do with that spirit behind it.
There's a lot of good things about a country town.
Everyone is waiting for the royal couple to emerge from the Shamrock Hotel for their final departure. You can see the fleet of cars there ready to take the whole entourage back to the airport. The royal couple have indeed had a very busy day today, because they left Melbourne very early this morning to go to Ballarat and then to Bendigo by aircraft, and now of course they're flying off to Albury, and they have an engagement tomorrow night again down back in Melbourne, so they certainly haven't had much time to rest on this tour.
Well, at least they'll have the feeling that they're going home tonight. They'll find everything that they need to hand and so on. But that's a great psychological factor as well. And they will go on to Wamagama, where Prince William is, and the rest of the team will go to the hotel at Albury.
It must be very hard for a young mother to leave a baby behind for the amount of time the princess has had to. Certainly she's had the baby here in Australia with her, but she has not had a great deal of time with Prince William. And I know that when I was a new mum, I would have found that very, very difficult.
Well, I think they've struck the happy medium, because Prince William is here and she's able to get back to him every few days and so on. That's worked out very well. There isn't the enormous gap that there would have been had he stayed behind in England.
Would she have had a battle with the Queen, Michael? Can you answer that one, to get that to happen?
I would not have thought so. I'd have thought that it rests very much with Prince Charles and Princess Diana. And the Queen, I'm sure, would respect what they wanted to do.
People have said that perhaps two heirs of the throne shouldn't be travelling on the same aircraft together, or shouldn't be travelling together.
Yes, that's been said. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's almost impossible to do. Of course, cost comes into this too now as a big factor.
The enormous number of nappies, of food for the baby, all the special ointments and creams that had to be bought just for Prince William. It was unbelievable, the amount of luggage just for the prince.
Yes, well, you know, when one packs a bag to go away for the weekend, if you're a family, like you know, you well know, Rosemary,
Yes.
there's an awful lot of what I call clobber that you've got to gather together, and on this scale it becomes quite something.
His clobber was about 246 disposable nappies. bibs, cardigans, cotton suits, all the rest of it, dozens of tins of special milk, many, many other things. I can't imagine packing all that.
There must be a lot of chatting going on, Paul. I think there's more talking to the crowd. We can't quite see, but he's going around all the people, and so is Her Royal Highness.
Loading all the flowers.
More flowers are going in.
Goodness me.
That's a Commonwealth driver standing by to help there.
By the look of it, also presents for baby Prince William being packed in there as well, the flowers.
Yes.
I think they'll be well off the teddy bears and koala bears, little soft cuddly toys. I don't think there'll be any need to buy any of those for the rest of the prince's young life.
Innumerable toys have been passed over. I think people are extraordinarily generous, aren't they? They're quite wonderful.
I'm not coming out, so you're not.
What a headache for organisers. What a worry it must be to plan something like this. But so far it's gone without a
How's
hitch.
the time now, Paul? It's just about, yes.
Yes, they're running about on schedule.
Yes,
They should be
not
just
bad.
about due to come out now.
Very good.
We shall farewell them on their way to Albury. People patiently waiting as they have done much of the day.
Perhaps the chef is showing them around the kitchen.
It could be.
What do you think? Yes. Is there a big bar in the Shamrock? I imagine there's a very good one. Great reputation, isn't there?
Yes, there are a couple of bars in the Shamrock. Perhaps they're decided for a drop of refreshment. You never know.
I was reading an interesting little bit about the photographs of the princess in Brazil, where there are no laws to prevent commercial use of the photographs of the princess. Diana's picture was being used on posters for, would you believe, razor blades and soap powders as an ad. And one single exclusive picture of the princess in perhaps gumboots or an evening gown, didn't matter what, would be worth more than $3,600 when it was syndicated in that particular country. So perhaps it's just as well that we have laws to protect her a little in the Commonwealth countries.
We are coming close to the end of our telecast. At this stage, I would like to thank you very much, Rosemary and Rosie Margan and Commander Michael Parker for their participation this afternoon. Your assistance has been invaluable. No doubt the viewers have enjoyed the comments you've made this afternoon. We thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having us, Paul. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and of course a pleasure to visit home for me.
Been a great pleasure and most interesting. Of course, they'll be signing the visitors' book, and no doubt there'll be a photograph given to the hotel with their signatures on it. That'll be one of the things that's happening at the moment.
Still thousands of people waiting to farewell them on their way to Albury.
Perhaps they are having a drink, you know. What is it, tea time or? Yes. I think
High
a
tea?
cup of tea might be
Cup of tea,
on
yes.
order. What do you think? Now,
Do you know, Paul, if the shops reopen after the Prince and Princess leave?
Yes,
or,
they do. They were due to reopen at 4:30, but of course things have run a little awry. But being Friday, of course, there's late night shopping here in the city. So no doubt the shopkeepers will be taking advantage of that.
Some movement at the doors of the Shamrock there.
when we first went to Canada, Paul, many of the provinces in Canada are dry. So I had a few drinks put in a box labeled kiwi. And people were astonished how often we polished our shoes. That was used in the late days. They were long days too. You sometimes 10 hours driving in cars, you know, and it was quite telling. And when you imagine that you're sitting in a car and you're going through people close to you, this noise comes at you the whole time. There are times when I found myself quite sort of weaving with the sound, you know.
Well, this certainly has been a long day for the royal couple, as you mentioned earlier on, because they've been going since very early this morning after a late night last night, no doubt.
That's right.
And they've still got a bit to go yet, haven't they?
They have, indeed. Flight to Albury would be what, about 30 minutes?
Yes, a little bit longer than
40
that,
minutes perhaps, and then they've got an hour's drive, I should think, to Holbrook and Woolmargaret.
Just a sense of anticipation as the crowds wait and wait. And they must be getting tired too, those that have been there since early this morning.
I presume the route to the airport is also lined with people all the way out.
Oh, it will be, yes.
Is about, would have to be a good 2 miles, Rosemary, wouldn't it, out to the airport
I
from
would
here?
think so, yes.
And so there could be quite a lot of people out McIver Road, Powell's Avenue, which is the direction that the royal couple are going.
There's now you can see the standard a bit more. Do you see what I mean by the label across the top of it?
Mm-hmm. And still the crowd wait, as we do,
Yes.
for that final wave to us.
She really is a beautiful princess, isn't she? She's so slim and tall and young, and her complexion is absolutely faultless. The skin is just the perfect skin of an English beauty.
It might be interesting to talk about the accomplishments that Prince Charles has managed to accumulate over the past 2 years. And when you think that in a very short time he's been a naval officer, he's commanded a ship, he's in the Air Force, here they come.
And here they come.
And the royal couple being farewelled by John Stoddart, the manager of the Shamrock Hotel, and the Jacks, also the Mayor of Bendigo, as they very slowly make their way out to the car. It'll take them a while to get past all the people, I think.
Wonderful roar of the crowd.
This is where you can easily get left behind. See them running.
Quickly, everyone. We're off.
There we go.
And as the royal couple leave the Shamrock, make their way up Liverpool Street, out to McIver Road, to the Bendigo Airport, we say farewell from this telecast of the historic royal visit of Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales, to Bendigo. To Rosemary Margan, to Commander Michael Parker, we thank you very much again, and we hope that you viewers have enjoyed our telecast.